Hello aspirants, I welcome you to the Impetus series. Now, as we have seen, there has been some break in the Impetus series because we have completed our current affair till March month. Now, if again focusing on the Impetus, and this time we will be finishing our Ramsar sites. Now, this year Ramsar sites becomes very important because 10 more Ramsar sites have been added to the list, and more importantly, as we will see today, the Ramsar site topic itself very important. Now the idea has been to replicate the same series that we have done in the, just one second, as we have done in the Tiger Reserve series. Okay, so just like we have done in the Tiger Reserve series, similarly we will take up this Ramsar site series as well. However, the length of the videos will be very small, so don't worry. With respect to the Ramsar sites, I am thinking to take at least in 4 to 5 sessions. Because we have 36 Ramsar sites itself and 37 Ramsar sites, and today will be an introduction session. Okay, so let us start. So first of all, we will see the utility of why we should read Ramsar sites in detail, like we have done in the Tiger Reserves. So as I told you, I'll follow the same model. So first we'll set up some context. Okay, why we should read it, because many questions have been asked on it over the years. You can see many questions on it. So it is a part of our current static syllabus. Okay, so it's a part of a current static thing, and we need to prepare all these Ramsar sites in a very comprehensive manner. For example, in 1999 question, India's first marine sanctuary in India. So again you can see many of the Ramsar site mentions here. So even if you are not able to crack that particular question, but at least with this information after these set of sessions, you will be able to eliminate many of the possibilities, right? And this is all about it, right? Prelims is all about elimination of the elimination of the options, and then you are left with the answers. Then we can see which is not the following the lagoon, right? So majority of them are the Ramsar sites. So we will be solving each and every question, don't worry about it. But as the sessions progress, then Lake Samba is nearest to which of the following cities? So you can see the location has been asked. Then which of the following is not correctly matched? So some of the reservoirs including some of the lakes have been given. Then we have question again, Norcake Biosphere Reserve, Namdapha National Park, and then Loktak Lake. So Loktak Lake is also one of the Ramsar sites. Then we can see Harike Wetlands, Keolo Ghana National Park, Koleru Lake, right? Again 2014 you can see a question on it. Then 2017 you can see question if you want to see Gharial. In fact, we have done this question in our current affairs series, right? When we were discussing about the Gharials and Chambal National Chambal Wildlife Sanctuary, we were discussing in the region of the UP, Rajasthan and the Madhya Pradesh, right? Then which of the following is an artificial lake? You can see the question in 2018. Then we have a question on the Ramsar site itself. Okay, so we will discuss this question today. So Ramsar site and the provisions for it. Then 2014 we have question on the Wetland international organization with respect to that. Then in this question again on 2019. So this is with respect to the recently being some wetland rules have been taken out by the government, and this is why they were in the news. In fact, for this current affair for 2020 prelims, you have to prepare for these wetland rules because the guidelines by MOEFCC have been released recently. Okay, so let us start. So please see this series as a extension of our current affair series as well. So we will be taking the issues which we will be covering here in Impetus series. Very less congruence you will find in a current affair series. So we want you to see both the series, right? So current affair series as well as our in this Impetus series. However, Impetus series itself will be an integrated whole. So all the content in the Impetus series will be, for example, everything in the Ramsar site will be covered here. I will not be doing a lot of cross referencing, right? Now in the 2018 in the mains examination, a question has been asked, what is a wetland? Explain the Ramsar concept of the voice use in the context of the wetland conservation. Cite 2 examples of Ramsar sites in India. Now when you read so many Ramsar sites, you can obviously cite 2 Ramsar sites, but however, you see very basic question has been asked, what is a wetland, and then Ramsar concept of the voice use. Okay. Now if you wetland, everybody prepares, right? Very important, very static topic, but this question has been on GS3. And if you talk about voice use, then what do you think voice use will be, right? If you see in the current context, voice use must be voice use will be like no activity will be prohibited? No, it cannot be that, because we will see many of the wetlands are source of fishing, for example, source of livelihood of the people. So obviously this voice use will be in the context of the sustainable development. So even if you do not know this in a concrete terms, okay, what is, how Ramsar site define voice use, but still you can write many of the points so that the ecological character of the wetland does not change and sustainable development also takes place. So it supposes the idea of the social equity, it supposes the idea of the economic benefits without a lot of damage to the wetland, something like that, and this is all you have to write in this. Then let us see. So we start with the wetlands. So what are the wetlands? Technically, Ramsar site defines wetland in that it includes variety of the habitats such as marshes, peatlands, floodplains, rivers and lake. What is peatland? So peatland we have covered, just one cross referencing I have to do. So peatland we have already covered in our environmental series, environmental current affairs. I think it is in February or March month, you please see. So in that I have covered peatlands in complete, all the international steps that have been taken for the peatland development, right, because they are a very important wetland, very critical to the idea of the carbon sequestration and the climate change overall, climate change mitigation. So again it includes also the coastal areas such as short marshes, mangroves, sea grasses beds, also includes coral reefs and other marine areas no longer than 6 meters at the low tide. Okay, then they also include not only these natural ones but also the man-made ones, such as, that is why one of the question has been asked, which is the one is artificial. So wastewater treatment ponds and the reservoirs, so they can also be termed as a wetland. So a simple definition of wetland can be seen as it is an ecotone. So ecotone is basically the transition area between the terrestrial and the aquatic system. So you can imagine this area where the terrestrial system is also there and the water system is also there. Okay, so they support a flourishing community of the aquatic organisms, including frogs, other amphibians. You can write anything. For example, you can see Loktak Lake, you see supporting many of the species there, right? Sangai is being supported there. Okay, then swamp, marshes, mangroves are the examples of the wetlands. So this small definition you can also grab. For example, parallelly we are also having the trend analysis sessions, right? One suggestion I'll have for you, that do prepare all these definitions. We have at least 50 to 60 topics in our syllabus, or if you stretch it out, 100. But out of those 100 topics, at least 20-30 questions come out of those GS 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 I'll say. You have 20 to 30 topic coming from those. So wetland, financial inclusion, inclusive growth, child labor, very small definition. Okay, so please prepare a list, and we have to write a working definition. I agree with that, but working definition at the time of the examination, you will take a lot of time to replicate that, isn't it? Hence, we have to remember a particular definition, so that in easy definition, not a tough. You can see this definition is a very easy definition. In fact, this Ramsar site definition is not a very tricky definition, isn't it? So we need to have a working definition, but we have to cram the definition, because if you cram it, if you replicate it, then you will save at least of your 10 to 20, 30 seconds, and that 30 seconds can give you half an extra mark, and this is how the level of competition is in this exam. Hence, you should prepare a list of all the definitions. So this was one of the things you can do on your own, and you can add this wetland definition, whatever both the things you like, you can add any one of those, right? So something about wetlands. So what are the services they provide? So they provide some provisioning services, regulating services, some cultural services, and some supporting events. So let us see one by one. Very quickly we'll see. So you can use all this content in your main answer writing. Okay, you can take that question and you can make the content out of it also. So in the provisioning you can see, so food they also provide, right? Production of fishes, fruits, grains, fresh water, fiber and fuel, production of the logs, fuel wood, biochemicals also, genetic material, genes for resistance to the plant pathogen. Then regulating, for climate regulation they are very important, as you discussed example of the peatlands. So you can give a concrete example of the peatland there. So for example, you are writing about the wetland, if it is not in Indian context, you can talk about the peatlands. Now what you have read in the current affairs, and this is how you can integrate your current affairs and the means preparation. Then water regulation, groundwater recharge and discharge, then erosion regulation, natural hazard regulation, pollination, right, cultural service such as spiritual or inspirational. So many of the religious and attach spiritual and religious value to the wetland ecosystem. Okay. Then recreational opportunities are there, then aesthetic opportunity, obviously there, educational opportunities, then supporting soil formation and the nutrient cycling. So you have to read 2 to 3 lines of each and you're done. And this is how mechanic you have to be, mechanistic way, one of the mechanistic way you have to prepare your mains preparation. Like gone are the days I believe which organically whatever comes in your mind you can write, but you have to be very mechanical. Okay, introduction we have to write this, in the wetland uses we have to write this, because this question can come anyway, right. Then we have the Ramsar site of the voice use. So as I've told you what will be that voice use, right. So for example you can see in the technical language, the voice use of the wetland is maintenance of its ecological character achieved through the implementation of the ecosystem approaches within the spirit of the sustainable development. So you can see the spirit of the sustainable development is there, and maintenance of an ecological character should be there. Okay, right. Then what about this eco-based system? It requires the I'm just reading it out. So it complex relationship between various ecosystem elements and promotion of the integrated management of land, water and the living resource. This is nothing but the sustainable development. Wise use emphasis on the sustainable development calls for resource use pattern and something like that. So important keyword I have highlighted, intergenerational equity point of view. So not only this generation but also the next generation uses it, right, and there should be intergenerational equity. That means the amount of the resources that I am getting access to, I should use it in such a way that whatever I have accessed, similar equity should also be to the next generation. It should not be that the next generation should face resource crunch or resource crisis. Okay, for example, one of the facts that I have read and I use this fact more often, that for example Bangalore, they have 262 rivers in 1960s, 262 lakes, sorry, which had the water, and currently the situation is that they have only 10 lakes which have water in Bangalore, and it is a very serious condition, isn't it? So this is what we need, wetlands, and that is why the problem of this urban flood, these problems come. Why? Because of this only, we don't have the natural way of where the water can run off. Then what are the activities are permitted under the voice use, right? So for example, community based ecotourism we permit, ecological rehabilitation, rewilding of the nature, wetland inventory, assessment and monitoring, research, community communication, environmental education, participation activities, management planning, very common things. You have to write mainly this point. I am discussing these things from the perspective of the main exam, not from the prelims perspective, because as majority of the students are now in the more main mode rather than the prelims mode, so that is why. Now this is from MOEFCC, this particular screenshot. So what they say, that what does not consist of the voice use. So for example, fragmentation of the wetland into small patches of water, emergence of the invasive species is there, then that is not a voice use. Then reduction in the water flowing into the wetland, if that is decreasing, then we have to intervene in that. Okay, degradation of the water quality is there, reduction in the water holding capacity if it is there. So these are the things, if it is there, then this will not be considered as the voice use. Then what about this Ramsar convention? Ramsar, where is Ramsar? Ramsar is in the Iran, in fact in the boundary with which is the sea here, Caspian Sea, right. So in the 1971 we have signed this Ramsar convention. So Iranian city of Ramsar is one of the oldest intergovernmental accord for preserving the ecological character of the wetland, also known as the Convention on the Wetland. Okay, is it binding? Answer is no, it is not a binding agreement. Obviously it tells the nation countries so as to come together and they prepare some sort of a framework. They decide, okay, this is the voice use, this is what you should do. So they prepare a kind of a guidelines for the other countries. Okay, so remember that majority of the international conventions are not binding in nature. If anything becomes binding in nature, then it becomes very important. For example, Kigali Agreement amendment, right? So whatever pledges we have done, that becomes binding on us. So something like that. For example, UNCCD that we have discussed, UNCCD is a legally binding agreement. Then we discuss about Montreux record. So what is this? So within the Ramsar convention, we have a record, a register kind of a thing, in which those wetlands are mentioned, those Ramsar sites are mentioned, in which some sort of ecological character has already occurred. Okay? So where the changes in the ecological character have occurred and are occurring or are likely to occur, so which are basically ecologically fragile as a result of the technological developments, pollution or other human interference. Okay, so these sites are in the Montreux record, and the current affair also have covered this basically. So Montreux record is which country? Switzerland. So remember that. So we know that Ramsar, majority of the aspirants know that Ramsar site is in the Iran. We sometimes tend to forget that what is this Montreux. Okay, right. So Ramsar site also works along with the other international organizations such as BirdLife International, IUCN, International Water Management Institute, Wetland International. Question has been asked on the Wetland International as well, WWF. So majority of the many of them are important. For example, WWF, IUCN. So these are the institutions, ecological institutions that you ought to prepare, right? Because the question has been asked on those. Then in the Indian context, if we talk about what about the Indian context, so recently as we have discussed, Center has notified the new wetland conservation rules, our states and the UTs to set up authority. Okay, so some fundamental changes have been brought with this wetland conservation and the management rule. Earlier we have management of these wetlands at a central level. Okay, so we have the central body. Now that body is dissolved and that gives to way to a state level body. So you can see again give example also when you are talking about the decentralization of decision making, because obviously the states are at a better position to judge what should be the intervention in a particular wetland. When do we cross that wise use boundary? When our use becomes exploitative and when our use becomes non-exploitative, or when it is in the context within overall spirit of the sustainable development. Okay, so under which act this comes? These are the rules, right? So under which act this comes? This comes under the EPA, Environmental Protection Act of 1986. So all the wetlands, irrespective of their location, size, ownership, biodiversity or ecological system, are included in that, except the river channels, the paddy fields, certain category of the human made water bodies, among the others. Okay, then also the protected area which falls under the purview of the coastal zone regulation. So those will not be considered under this. Okay, because we have seen many of the coastal ecosystems are also part of the wetland, so that will not be part of this wetland rules. Okay, then who has released this guidelines? Obviously MOEF CC has released, Ministry of Environment and Forest and the Climate Change. So as we have discussed, some state level authority has been built, that is State Wetland Authority. Okay, so who will be the minister in charge? Minister in charge in the state will be the chairperson of that authority, so not the central one. So there is no central authority, it gives the way to the state level authority. So will prepare a list of all wetlands of the state or the union territory. It will function as a nodal authority for all the wetland specific authority within the state and will look into the related conservation plan. Okay, right. So this is the function of the State Wetland Authority. It has two parts of it, not very important, but let us discuss because it was in the news. So a technical committee will also be there and the grievance committee will be there. Technical committee, what it will do, it will review the documents, management plan, and it will advise on these. Grievance committee will take up the grievance from the people, and this is a good point actually. So the grievance raised by the public to the authority. So all those grievances will be raised by the people and this State Wetland Authority will cater to it. Now you know that many a times wetland problems in the wetland start why? Because of the encroachment first of all. Secondly, we throw a lot of garbage into it, and that is why the problem starts. So if the people are conscious about it, if they know the importance of the wetland in their neighborhood and overall importance of the wetland, then they can complain to the State Wetland Authority and the subsequent actions can be taken. They have prohibited some activities and they have given that okay, some sort of prohibited activity can be taken if you take the permission from the MOEFCC. Okay, and the request has to be made by the State Wetland Authority. So what they have said, what way they have prohibited? So conversion of the wetland, including the encroachment of any kind, setting up of any industry, expansion of the existing industries, solid waste dumping, discharge of untreated waste. So these are the things If they do, then it is a prohibited activity. But as I discussed, some of the activities can also be allowed by MOEFCC on the recommendation of the State Wetland Authority. What are the regulating activities which should be regulated? So, sustenance level biomass harvesting, sustainable culture, fishing practices, plying of the non-motorized boats, construction of the temporary nature. So, these things can be done. However, it should be regulated. Okay. So, nothing is as such allowed specifically, but these things, if you are doing these things, if you are doing in a proper limit, then that's fine. Some sort of regulation should be there. So, as I was telling you that central wetland regulating authority was replaced. So, central body paves the way to the state. So, this body will have more of the executive power, and this will only be they will be replaced by a committee, and this committee will do only the monitor and the supervisory functions. So, remember that, because if question is being formed on it, one option can be this part. Okay. But however, this question has been asked in 2019, so I don't think the question will be asked again, right. So, that brings us to almost the end of our first session. So, we have the first question that we are going to discuss today. So, India is party to Ramsar's convention and has declared many areas as the Ramsar site. Which of the following statement best describes as to how we maintain these sites in the context of the convention? Okay. So, let us see. So, keep all the sites completely inaccessible. Just one second. Yes. So, keep all the inaccessible to the man so that he will not be they will not be exploited. So, this is not a practical line, isn't it? Completely inaccessible. How can you make these wetlands as completely inaccessible, isn't it? Many of the livelihoods depend on it. That conserve all these sites through ecosystem based approach and permit tourism and recreation. Okay, fine. Then they have given the word only. No, that is also an issue, because we can see many of the issues, many of the things are also applied on it, right. Then conserve all the sites including ecosystem approach for a period without any exploitation with a specific criteria and specific period for each site. Then allow sustainable use by the future generation. Again, it is very technical. Let us see fourth one. Conserve all the sites through ecosystem approach and allow their simultaneous sustainable use. It's more realistic, isn't it? So, answer will be fourth one. So, you can see third and fourth are competing options. However, fourth seems to be more logical, right. Next is 2019 question. In fact, under Ramsar Convention, it is mandatory on the part of the government of India to protect and preserve all the wetlands in the territory of India. It is mandatory. So, do you think it will be mandatory? Answer is no. It will not be mandatory. Okay, right. So, when it is not mandatory, then option 1 goes, option 2 goes. Then wetland were framed by government of India based upon the recommendation of the Ramsar Convention. Obviously, we are signatory to the Ramsar Convention. Then obviously we will face our will make our this wetland conservation management rules. Now, they were talking about 2010 rules, right. Currently, these 2017 rules are also made by the Ramsar site. Actually, one of the highlights were also that the voice use defined by the Ramsar site, we are using the same criteria, but there was no use of mentioning it, because that is highly intuitive, isn't it? So, option 2 and option 3 both will be right, and option 1 will be wrong. So, option answer will be B. 2 and 3 is right. Okay, then. So, we have discussed 2 questions. We have not discussed any Ramsar sites yet. So, we will follow the similar protocol that we have followed in our Tiger Reserve series. So, if you have not seen Tiger Reserve series, please do see that. It is very important. Sessions are relatively long, I get it, but they will be very important for your preparation, for prelims preparation. Okay, and similar with these sessions as well. And the slides are also very important for our prelims preparation, right. So, I will see you in the very next class when we will start the discussion of our Ramsar sites. I will pick up, just like I have done the Tiger Reserve, I will pick up, I will make divisions of the country in certain areas. Then we will start discussing area by area, so that we can also remember which Ramsar site belongs to which state, by diagrammatically, most importantly. Okay, then see you in the next class, everyone. Bye bye for now. Please keep on revising. The parallel series of the mains master is going on. We are putting up trend analysis sessions, and our mains master program is also going on. You can join that, and simultaneously we will try to finish this Ramsar site series sessions are also very quickly. And one more announcement is there, that we are done with our March till March month current affairs, but soon we will also be coming up with our April month as well, April and May month, and till the time it is required for our 2020 prelims. So we'll be doing that, and okay then, see you in the next class. Thank you. Bye bye.